Aaron Rodgers is back in the biggest OTA storylines from today. What is going on? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Today I'm getting into OTAs, an exciting open practice today with some new fresh storylines that I wanted to talk about. So before we get started, just wanted to mention you can follow on socials, Matt O'Leary NY, and also Talkin' Jets is tonight at 8 o'clock. Make sure to tune in on the brand new Talkin' Jets panel. I'm even rocking the shirt from Talkin' Jets. Make sure to pick up yours. It is so comfortable. It's like a dry fit. You gotta love it. So Aaron Rodgers is back at practice today and looked very comfortable according to reports. He did not participate in 11-on-11 drills, but that was done purposely because they didn't want anyone ending up by his feet. Okay, that is fair. Supposedly he looked pretty comfortable. Not really too many things to report. There were a couple drops mixed in. But the big one was the Garrett Wilson fade route over DJ Reed. Supposedly a really nice play. You know, that's what was being reported from training camp today, or not training camp, excuse me, OTAs today, which is something that hopefully you get to see a lot of Aaron Rodgers going to none other than Garrett Wilson. Please continue to feed him. And it's good to see Aaron Rodgers back at practice and looking comfortable in the offense. Next up on the agenda is Carl Lawson. If you saw a picture of Carl Lawson out there, he looks gigantic. Now, last year, 7 sacks from our guy, Carl Lawson. He was returning from an Achilles injury, and as Connor Hughes mentioned at the end of last year, kind of played through an injury last year. He had to have a second surgery, which was not very widely reported, and they weren't sure if they were going to get him back until like November. He plays not only the entire season, but did not miss a practice. So I'm curious to see if we have a different version of Carl Lawson this year. I think that would be huge for this defense. If you remember going back to 2021, Lawson looked like the best player on the field most days during training camp before the injury. I was super excited to see him. Yeah, again, he had 7 sacks last year. Can he push for double digits? Maybe. I think they're going to rotate him. So I don't know if that is going to be super realistic, but I think we'll see a more productive and more consistent, I guess is probably the better way to put it, a more consistent Carl Lawson in 2023, which I really like a lot. Good to see that from our guy, Carl. Next up, Jeremy Rucker supposedly looking awesome. Here's a clip here's a clip from Robert Saleh talking about our guy, Jeremy Rucker.
He looks awesome. He's hungry. Last year he had the plantar fasciitis. He was, dealing with the foot injury all season. But he looks like a guy on a mission. Now we're not in pads yet, but I'm not worried about him in pads. He's got a nasty streak to him, but excited about him and the direction he's going for sure.
I would really love to see Jeremy Rucker push for tight end 2 on this team. My guess is Tyler Conklin is going to lead the way in receptions for tight ends. I think he's going to be the one most heavily involved, but all offseason long, we've really heard about a big push coming from Jeremy Rucker, which is really not all that surprising for a young tight end. He was a rookie 3rd-round pick last year, really didn't have much of a role, was used slightly down the stretch last year as a blocker, which was, I thought he looked impressive in the Miami game specifically at the end of the year. But going into this year in 2023, I'd like to see him surpass CJ Uzomah as tight end 2. I think that'd be a really nice step for him. I think most tight ends, it's very rare that you see someone come in and dominate right away and be a really good player. A lot of times these mid-round picks at tight end take a few years to develop. You had Dawson Knox is an example of one who was brought on a little bit slowly. Dalton Schultz is another one who was brought on a little bit slowly, but turned into a really solid pro at the next level. And I think that's the kind of trajectory we can see from Jeremy Rucker. So don't throw in the towel on him yet. I think he is developing nicely, and hopefully he gets a bigger role at minimum as a blocker, because to me, he's the most efficient blocking tight end the Jets have. Also, I don't know if this is great news for those who are in the Quan Alexander hive, myself included, as Robert Saleh spoke about Jamian Sherwood potentially being linebacker 3.
Yeah, Wood's doing a really nice job, because he's got it hard. He's got to work between Sam and Mike, so he's got to do two positions at once, and it's year 3 for him. He looks really good, though. He's very smart. He's very comfortable in the system, and he's executing at a high level. So, again, excited for him to get pads on. Not that I'm even worried about his physicality and all that stuff, but just excited for real football, defending the run, and doing all the things that we think just to see the steps that he's taken.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I just really want us to see Quan Alexander brought back. I don't really think it's asking all that much to see because of how productive he was last year. I don't love the Jets linebacker room. They love Quincy Williams. He's going to be linebacker 2. Obviously, CJ Mosley, the leader, is going to be the number 1 linebacker. But Jamie and Sherwood, they have talked up a ton. And there was some potential there at times last year. We saw CJ Mosley banged up, and Jamie and Sherwood would come in a relief role and be pretty solid. He'd held his own. But on the point that I always make about bringing back Quan Alexander and bringing back the veteran is you are in a window where you are going for it. I think there is risk involved with putting a young player in a spot that he hasn't really played well or played in consistently yet. Could it work out well? Yeah, it could, but he could also be in over his head, and then what? Then you're, left in a little bit of a pickle, which is something I don't necessarily want the Jets to be in. I would rather have that comfortability with someone who has been there and done that in Quan and someone who knows the defense really well. It was also a really weird day for Zach Wilson. You had some reports where he looked really bad. Others said it was a good day for Zach Wilson. Rich Samini said a good day, which is a little surprising. He was on the positive side, where Connor Hughes was someone who seemed to be a little bit more down on Zach Wilson. From my interpretation, obviously I wasn't there, but just my interpretation of following along with the day over Twitter is that he was better at 11 on 11, okay at 7 on 7, but struggled in the red zone, missing a couple of throws. He went 2 of 4 in the red zone. It was unable to come away with a touchdown. Unfortunately, there are days where that's going to be the case with Zach Wilson. It just seems like the inconsistencies are still there, which is the biggest takeaway, I guess, from all of this for me, is that Zach Wilson is going to have days where he looks good and looks like the player that you thought you were getting, number 2 overall, and then he's going to make a couple head-scratching throws, and you go, well, how is this still happening? Which is obviously frustrating and maybe makes you question if the Jets should bring in another quarterback for a QB2, but that's probably a conversation for another day. And last but certainly not least, CJ Mosley is open to the idea of restructuring his contract. It's something he did last year. He is due $21 million against the cap this year, coming up in 2023, which is just entirely way too much money for someone like CJ Mosley. I like him. He's a good player. Obviously was an all-pro last year, but just an insane cap hit for an off-ball linebacker. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, so I think that one gets redone. But those are my biggest takeaways from OTAs today. I want to hear from you. What were your biggest takeaways? Let me know. Sound off below. I'm Matt. I'll catch you next time.